Next, we're going to go into our public comment. Just on the public comment side, we welcome all the written comments that we've received. Our public comments are limited to 2 minutes. Our comments can express simple support for dissent, for support or dissent for regulatory action that we're doing. Individuals should use public comment to complain, should not use public comment to complain about personnel issues or attack or defame an individual. Speakers making a highly detailed or complex comment should also consider providing a written online comment of their words to the board. We're very much ready to receive those. And please remember that children may hear your comments. Be thoughtful and professional. And we request that we keep our comments appropriate for our general audience. And again, the invitation is there. If there's more explicit materials or something of sensitive nature, that we do invite these comments to come to us in writing. So thank you. So let's go right into our public comment period. We've got quite a few in person, so let's do the in persons first. Okay, Deborah Cole. Then we'll put Benny Larson, you're on deck. Oh, let's see. Yeah. So, Deborah. So we have can somebody turn that mic on, please?
I want to talk about the SHARP survey. And we know that this is something that is used for data-driven decisions that protect and improve the health of our young people. Within the last year, a coalition of the nation's leading experts in pediatric health have issued an urgent warning declaring the mental health crisis among the children of this nation. This included the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Children's Hospital Association, and the American Academy of Children and Adolescent Psychiatry, which together represent more than 77,000 physicians and 200 children's hospitals. This is a time we most need the information from the SHARP survey so that we can do crisis prevention and do more than just crisis response. We know that belonging is one of the main robust ways to enhance both mental and physical health for our youth and children. Being seen and heard are a big part of what promotes belonging. For many of our most at-risk youth, the SHARP survey is the one and only time that they know that they have a voice and feel they are being heard and that what they are experiencing makes a difference. This is especially important for many of our unseen minorities who often feel there is no other place for them to be heard. These are also our most important at-risk youth for a variety of reasons. We know from the SHARP survey itself that it is our minorities that suffer the most, not the only ones. I think that this affects all of them. Good mental health as youth and having their concerns cared about and addressed is important for their success in school and in life, is an important part of helping Utah thrive over the long term. The school board not supporting the SHARP survey looks like our school board doesn't care about the struggles of our youth or helping them thrive, especially for those minorities. We need to continue to send a message that we want to identify where we can help and do suicide prevention, not crisis response, suicide and other health. I also am going to leave this. It's written by the Springtide series of mental health. They've done a lot of surveys nationally, and this is written specifically in response to this crisis, and it's for educators specifically. Where do I leave this?
Thank you. Benny Larson.
Hello, I want to thank the board for letting us share our thoughts today. My name is Larson. I am a parent of kids in the Canyon School District who have participated in the SHARP survey in the past, but I also represent today the Utah Suicide Prevention Coalition. I serve as the co-chair of that group, and I represent the executive committee today when I encourage you to support the SHARP survey. It is given every 2 years to Utah students grades 6th, 8th, and 10th and 12th in most public school districts across the state. This survey allows our state to measure teen substance use, mental health issues, risk and protective factors that predict problem outcomes in youth. It's imperative to have this data to respond to the mental health needs of our youth and enable the design and implementation of suicide prevention and interventions in these strategies. The SHARP survey informs our Utah Suicide Prevention State Plan, and it allows us to evaluate the impact of the prioritized strategies. The SHARP data is consistently used by the state coalition and our partners to bring funding to our state, both state funding and national funding, to address youth mental health needs. We want to acknowledge that there are concerns about asking sensitive issues to our students and that it might cause harm, but we know based on research that asking things about drugs, sex, mental health issues does not give students the ideas, or does it cause them to engage in unhealthy behavior, including suicide ideation. Other studies have suggested acknowledging and talking about suicide openly reduces rather than increases suicidal ideation and may lead to improvements in mental health treatment and help seeking. The Utah Suicide Prevention Coalition hopes that the Utah School Board, State School Board, will recognize the value of the SHARP survey and will continue to support it and support the mental health and the well-being of our students here in Utah. We know that local districts make these choices, but we ask that for your support because they look to you for guidance, and we really appreciate the guidance you've offered in the past, and I thank you today.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll have Marina Lowe with Joe Johnson on deck.
Thank you. My name is Marina Lowe, and I'm the Policy Director with Equality Utah, Utah's largest LGBTQ civil rights organization. I'm here today to speak in favor of the State School Board retaining its position of support of the SHARP survey. LGBTQ adults and youth experience a significantly elevated risk for suicide and suicide behavior. National data from the 2015 Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance Survey indicates that LGBT youth seriously contemplate suicide at almost 3 times the rate of heterosexual youth. Population-based studies over the last 2 decades confirm this data, providing strong evidence of higher rates of reported suicide ideation and attempts in LGBT populations compared to heterosexual adolescents and adults. It is in this vein that we advocate for the real need to continue to collect data that specifically looks to sexual orientation and gender identity as a means to better understand and develop strategies to help at-risk LGBTQ youth in our state. We are grateful that in 2019, gender identity and sexual orientation was added to the Utah Prevention Needs Assessment Survey that is conducted as part of the SHARP statewide survey. In 2019, that survey found that 11.8% of high school students in Utah identify as not heterosexual. Putting these 2 facts together, we believe that it's imperative to continue to collect this data in order to understand the risks faced by LGBTQ students and in order to develop meaningful strategies to reduce suicides and to support their mental well-being. USBE's continued endorsement of this data collection would demonstrate a commitment to supporting Utah's LGBTQ youth. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Joe Johnson with France Barrel with the PTA on deck. Joe.
Yesterday, as I was catching up on your board meetings regarding HB 374, I ran across this paragraph defining age appropriateness in a community standard. To be honest, I'm pretty disappointed that the staff and the board did not give it more attention. This paragraph reads, if school library material is deemed too explicit to be read out loud by an adult during a public meeting in the presence of children or read aloud by a minor in front of an audience of their peers, then it automatically qualifies as going against the prevailing community standard and shall be automatically removed from the school and from its digital library. Interesting that at the beginning of these public comments today, that was the exact instruction that was given, but in our administration of HB 374, we didn't give that clear of guidance. Now, I live in Alpine School District, and these are some of the challenges that, as a parent, I'm left with. I have one board member that has stated, "Let me be clear. No one is encouraging porn in schools. No one is advocating for Playboy or Hustler," assuming that that's the only two types of porn that we find in society. She goes on to say, "I think the state code is too strict. Sex is not porn. A survivor describing how they were assaulted is not porn." We have a board member that can't even define porn per state statute, let alone define age appropriateness or our community standard. It appears at times that this board has sought to shift at every turn to undermine the state legislature and state statute. I am grateful for those of you who have stood with the legislature and parents. I'd like to specifically mention Board Member Klein's willingness to come and represent her constituents and speak articulately and eloquently as a citizen to help us protect our children. ASD's policy that by one board member's own admission seeks to avoid HB 374's bright line rule. As a parent regarding the SHARP survey, thank you for recognizing that this is not your lane. Please continue to not support it. Remember that you don't represent associations or groups or those. You represent taxpayers and you represent parents and students. Thank you.
Next, we'll have France with Sarah Jones on debt.
Good morning, board members. France Brower, Utah PTA. Utah PTA mission is to make every child's potential a reality by engaging and empowering families and communities to advocate for all children. Utah PTA is the largest child advocacy organization. It's a 501c3 and has done advocacy work on behalf of all Utah children for the last 125 years. We rely on our resolutions on the areas of education, safety, family engagement, student involvement, and health to guide our advocacy work during the session. Further, in addition to resolutions, Utah PTA membership approves the legislative priorities that fall in the fall, and we haven't done that yet. Today, the board will be finalizing the funding priorities for the upcoming public education budget. As the board contemplates the numerous business cases and priorities, Utah PTA would like to urge the board to support programs that reach the largest number of students, programs that offer documented positive academic impact, solutions that favor prevention over remediation, business cases that keep Utah students safe and engaged in the joy of learning. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Before I go to Sarah, I've got one more in person. Steve Sparty, did I get that right? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Come on up. Thank you, Sarah.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for having me. So since the implementation of HB 374, we got direction from Sean Reyes, our Attorney General, that was pretty explicit in what he would like us to do. The school board put together a model policy, and instead of putting together a policy that I think could really be used by all the districts across the state, they put together a model policy that was just littered with issues, and then kind of punted that responsibility to every school district for them to kind of try and muddle through this mess on their own, which has resulted in a myriad of problems across the state, and especially in the district where I'm at, in Alpine School District. I sent a letter to all of you explaining some of the issues that we had in our policy, explaining that it didn't follow HB 374, it didn't follow the AG's letter on June 1st, and it didn't follow the educator standards by any stretch. I got a response from one board member who at the end of the email said that the goal is to protect minors. I almost had to stop myself from laughing because the policy does not help protect minors. I'd be more than happy to sit down with each one of you if you have time, and I can go through how this policy does not protect minors. Parents are losing trust in the educational system. If there was a bullying situation and it was brought to your attention, would the first response be to write a policy, create a committee, and then have a parent come in and explain the bullying situation and then vote on whether or not it truly was bullying? Because that's the situation we're in now. We were told that the materials that we brought to the school district weren't pornographic in nature. And so we went through and read all of the materials. Well, we've only made it through 52 books so far. We have another 70 that we're going to drop next week. But we went through all 52 books and showed the page number, the book, the paragraph, and wrote it all out in detail so that there was no confusion about what we were talking about. We were told that that definition of pornography was not the same as everyone else's, to which we were just absolutely shocked. So I reached out to a few of the board members, and we received help from board member Klein, and we were so appreciative of her help to come down and support us at our district meeting. The policy has since been changed. There is still a load of problems with the policy as it directs parents to go to every school and fight every school and every book at every school and every material. There is no trust when parents are forced to go through bureaucratic processes that burden them down in a system where change is slow to happen. Under the current proposal and the current policy, we won't get the materials out that we've so far identified until 2050. So if protecting children is the priority, this seems like a weird way to do it. Thank you.
Next, we'll have Sarah Jones. Brent Bills, you're on deck. This is through Zoom. Sarah?
Good morning, board members. I'm Dr. Sarah Jones with the Utah Education Association. Last year, the state board and UEA worked
Sarah, hang
together
on
to-
one sec. We're going to try to get some volume cranked up here. Let's give that a try. We can barely hear you.
Oh, all right. Can you hear me better now?
Not really, just a little bit. Let's try it now.
Okay. Can you hear me better now?
No, but use your very strongest voice.
Your teacher voice.
Yeah.
I will shout. Last year,
Hey, hang on.
last year,
Hey, let's see if we, Sarah, let's go to Brent and see if it's on our end or. Oh, we got you there. Oh, we have you, Sarah. Hang in there. Back to Sarah. That worked. Something happened.
Okay, you can hear me now?
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Okay, good. Now that we're all awake. Last year, the state board and UEA worked together to advocate for paid professional hours for educators. As a result, the legislature passed House Bill 396 unanimously through both the Senate and the House and appropriated $64 million for educators to use for planning and collaboration. And the money was not just for classroom educators, it was for special education teachers, school counselors, building administrators, school psychologists, and all of the individuals in a school that make a difference for our students. And I've heard from many, many educators, as I'm sure you have as well, that it was exciting for them to see how the legislature acknowledged the countless hours that educators spend in the evenings, on weekends, over the summer breaks, on winter holidays, and so on, doing the work that they need to be doing so our students can succeed. And then for educators to feel that not only has the legislature acknowledged this extra work that they do, but then to provide professional compensation for their professional work was really supportive for educators. But because this money was one-time money from the education stabilization account, The legislature has to choose to keep that funding going for next year and the year after that and so on. UEA's 2023 legislative priorities will continue to prioritize the funding of this program. And today, as you as board members work to finalize your legislative priorities for 2023, please prioritize the continuation of the paid professional hours program so that educators don't lose this valuable resource. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. Let's go to Brent Beals. You're next with Dave Gardner on deck.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. I'd like to talk about the proposed changes to R277-911. This is a CTE add-on funding. There are three concerns I really have with this, and they're in lines 579 to line 600 of the proposed rule changes. The first is that CTE add-on funding under state law does not require any matching funds whatsoever. In fact, if you look at the state code in that area, 57 or 53F to 311, it just states that the way that the money should be allocated, it doesn't require any maintenance of effort. When the state legislature was looking at getting rid of the flexible allocation a number of years ago, they had discussions about moving that up into the WPU. The concern was that that would increase funding to CTE and special ed at the cost of the general fund. And so they created the bifurcated WPU. That was not their first way they wanted to do it. They asked us what the best way to do it was. We did mention that they could change the MOE calculation. We were told at that time from the state finance director at USOE that that was a Carl Perkins issue and that they could not affect that, that was not controlled by the state board or the state legislature. So it's now interesting that it's now being said it's a state issue. The second is that this MOE is K-12 money that we receive, and the state boards never stepped on our K-12 funding before and said, we're going to control how, when, or where you need to spend that. Now it looks like there's going to be a 30% cap on our carryover. And the way the bill's written right now, that carryover would all be add-on, or would all be MOE dollars, because you'd be required to spend add-on dollars first. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go to Dave Gardner and then Monica. Let's see. Yeah, Dave Gardner, and then we have in person Monica Wilbur. I didn't catch that earlier, so I'll do that one last.
All right.
Okay. So
Dave Gardner. I'm the CTE director in Washington County, and I work with Brent as my business administrator. And I think he does a great job on his efforts that he does. And I appreciate the work that Talia and her team does at the state office for the work that they do. Just a couple of comments I would make is that as far as indirect cost rate, I think it's a great opportunity for BAs and CTE directors to work together to perhaps maybe determine that rate maybe a little more readily. I realize the bigger the district, the more economies of scale we have. And so I recognize that there's a higher cost associated in the bigger districts, and the smaller districts, they struggle just with the end of what they need to do from an economy scale standpoint. And so lowering their amount of indirect costs, I think, would be beneficial for them. The other part is just simply our spend plan. The proposed 30% is a little bit, ties our hands a little bit. I don't know how tied down the spend plan will make us. We need to be able to pivot on some things that we do. One of the decisions that we made was to go with our career tech high school, and we were in a position to do that because of the funding stream that we had, and we were able to pivot on that. If we'd had a spend plan and we had to move out of that, I don't know that that would give us the flexibility that we need as well. So those are just a couple of comments on my end.
Thank you. So next we're going to go to Monica Wilbur. with Andrea Hinton. You're on deck. Monica.
Thank you. Good morning, Board. First, I'd like to thank Board Member Klein for speaking up for parents and against porn in the Alpine School District. Second, I'd like to address the shortcomings and hazards of the psychosocial screening tool, the SHARP survey. And I'd like to point out that you cannot draw a straight line between the SHARP survey and the prevention of a single suicide here in Utah. I appreciate these concerns with the SHARP survey expressed by board members in June. Member Belknap said, I had 3 different counselors when this was given a year ago that said we would never let our children look at this survey. Member Earl stated, it is an unethical practice in administering any research survey to provide any mechanism that's going to coerce, especially children, into completing something that they feel uncomfortable with. Member Moss explained, I worry that the survey might actually affect the corollary relationship in a child's perception of whether his parents are good parents. The SHARP survey is a bit of a confidence trick, literally. Children are asked to confide detailed, deeply personal information to the survey, and their answers are used to implement generalized programs aimed not at individual persons, but at the collective. It's kind of like taking a hatchet to a sliver. And parents and their students have been misled about both the effectiveness and the ethics of such an approach. The purveyors of at-risk prevention programs need these blanket programs to justify their existence, even though these same programs have no proven track record of affecting meaningful personal change in the existence of a single child. We can't want our children to be broken so we can claim the glory of fixing them. I'm asking the board to trust its instinctive misgivings on the SHARP survey and withdraw all support for it statewide. And as Member Hymas said this morning, let children control their minds. Thank you very much.
Next, we'll have Andrea Hinton, which will be Zoom. Andrea.
Yes, thank you so much. So I'm Andrea Hinton. I'm a parent of a few kids here in Alpine School District. And what I want to talk about is the full day kindergarten. I think it needs to be available for all children in the state of Utah. My oldest son, who's now in 7th grade, tested at the time back in kindergarten, qualified for the full day. He excelled in social and educational skills because of it, and it set up a great foundation for his schooling. It also helped me a great deal as a working mom because daycare is expensive, and I felt safe and happy knowing that my son was being taught by certified teachers and able to be around other children doing the same thing. Many families today have both parents working, and the classroom is a great place for these younger children to learn and socialize. Please make this a priority and appropriate the funding to make it a reality. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe, yep, we're complete. Well, that concludes our public comment period. Appreciate the comments. And again, there's an invitation that out there that we are receiving public comment in written form through our website. So that invitation's still there. We look forward to those.